Okay. MashaAllah. Should I mute the YouTube now? Okay. Okay, mashallah. Excellent. I'm gonna share. Bismillah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. MashaAllah. Barakallah feek. Amin. Jazakallah khair, Kashif. Barakallah feek. Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. Inshallah ta'ala, today we are continuing our fiqh of worship, fasting, specifically on ahkam of fasting. Hopefully, inshallah, we're going to continue on fasting even after Ramadan, bring in a lot of ahkam and rulings that we frequently have. As we are continuing our fasting, maybe with the 6 days of Shawwal, and then we're going to have some, inshallah ta'ala. I want to really get you really prepared for all the fasting ahkam as we enter, inshallah, with Allah's will. Ramadan next time, we enter, inshallah ta'ala, with full knowledge. So that's, inshallah, hopeful. So what we will do, bi'idhnillah, finish all the course. And inshallah, with Allah's will, Allah gives us life as we are all together for next Ramadan. We will prepare ourselves as just review. So you enter the month of Ramadan next year with absolutely full knowledge and also refreshing all this information. The chapter of fasting is heavily it heavily involves a lot of rulings and ahkam. So it's really good to have it, and also as the all these courses really intertwine with each other and they really overlap each other, as you have the fasting and you have the salah during fasting and salah on travel during Ramadan during, how do you get the salah while you're fasting while on tahara, someone has tahara on and what have you. So they're really all overlapping. That's why it's very essential to know all the ahkam together. So inshallah ta'ala, today we are covering today it might be a little bit of a complex session, but I fully understand if you don't grasp it fully, because this is all about the moon sighting and what have you. But it's okay, don't worry about it. And I'm not going to hold you accountable for it on the test, because it's not something that you really need on your daily basis. It's really done by the government. It's really done by the Islamic State. It's really done by the Islamic institutions that are doing that on our behalf. So as an individual, you don't have to really be very well versed on these things. But it's a knowledge, since you are covering the rulings of Siyam and fasting, you should know these things. So what does the Muslim say at the sight of the new moon? Now, if you're actually one of the people that physically go out and see the crescent, and you are among those who have witnessed it, and you will provide your shahada and your uh, testimony to the authority that will declare the month of Ramadan. At the sight of the new moon of the lunar month, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ used to supplicate that the supplication that you see on the slide here. which means, oh Allah, let this moon appear on us with security and Iman, with safety and Islam. O moon, now you're just addressing the moon, which is the crescent. Your Rabb and mine, yani Allah, which is the Lord of the moon, the crescent, and the Lord of humanity at large, that is listening to our dua. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or may this moon be bringing guidance and good. Yani you're just asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with this blessed start of the month to bring nothing but khair. And remember, you have witnessed it yourself. So you're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this as a blessed start for you. When should fasting commence if there is a difference in the horizon in one place versus another? Remember all the issues of different moon sighting, and those people are fasting, the others are not, and what have you. How does that work? So why do we have this? Why can't we all fast at the same time? Why can't we break the fast on the same time? Remember, Islam is a very practical faith. It's not coming for idealism, because idealism only caters for a specific segment of the society. But Islam comes to cater for many segments of the people. So now that you have Islam comes to be practical. You have people who are in villages, people who are in cities, people who are in metropolitan areas, people who are in a very rural area, people who are completely disconnected and what have you. So this is how Islam comes to cater everybody. So the majority of scholars state that fasting should commence at the same time for all Muslims. So now we want to learn, as students of knowledge, for those that are very adamant about this issue of moon sighting, and they tell you, who cares whether we fast together or not, as long as we just follow the sunnah. And they're just, with good hearts, they're very rigid when it comes to flexibility about, the other opinion, and they're not really looking to see the idealism and the really great benefit of being one ummah united together. They don't see that. All they see, with good hearts, of course, all they see is that they just want to follow the orders of Prophet Muhammad SAW, thinking that they only the one that got it and they're following, as if the other scholars are not really following the sunnah of Prophet Muhammad SAW. Again, as I said, the reason why we have these arguments and what have you is all with good hearts, but they don't see that, they don't realize that they are only zooming into one opinion, and because of their lack of knowledge, they don't understand that many others have read the same evidences that they carry, but understood it in a different way. Yani, it's really no difference than two people looking at something, like looking or reading, let's say two people reading an article or a statement or a paragraph. One says, this is what I understood from this paragraph. The other says, this is what I understood. And they vary. The two opinions, they do vary. They're different. And some people say, I read it this way. The other person says, I didn't read it that way. And sometimes, even when we're gathered together in a gathering and shaitan wants to, come in between us, somebody says something, one person gets very offended and gets really offended to a point that they take a stand against that person without even going back to that person and asking, what did you mean when you say that? So as they share that stand, that strong stand against that person, they share it with somebody else and said, did you listen what he said or what she said and what have you? And the other, I said, yes, I did. He meant or she meant that way. And the other person is telling you, I didn't understand it that way. And we have this problem a lot, especially when we are behind desktops or on our phones, when we receive emails or text messages, and sometimes we read way more into it than what it really meant. And this all has to do with our personalities. Sometimes because of the circumstances that we're going through, your brain is processing things a little bit differently and what have you. So now you learned in this today's session that the majority of our scholars want us to fast on the same day and to break the fast on the same day. So it's not like some people say, you know, who said that we have to be on this united on the same day? Now you know that we should. And the difference in horizon should not be taken into consideration. So that's the majority of the scholars. So you're learning today that's the majority of the scholars. The Shafi'i school is the school that actually states that commencement of fasting can differ with the differing horizons if areas are separated by great distance. So here we fully respect, and you see now why we have this different of opinions, where the school of Shafi'i wanted to be very practical, said, how can you get all the ummah, from all walks of life to be united on the same day? So don't make it too complicated. Let's let each region, sight the moon or the crescent, and then they can decide. If they see it, they fast. They don't see it, they continue. And that's it. Khalas, don't really make it mandatory on everybody. That's their opinion, and we fully respect that. But we look at it maybe at that time school, the disunity was not a big issue for them because they are completely really disconnected. So they don't see disunity. This is just my own opinion. This has nothing to do with the fiqh. At that time, they did not see a big problem of being disunited or not united on the same day, because the social living, the communication level, the way that they lived did not make a big difference because they're completely disconnected. They have no clue what the others are doing, or it takes days until they get to know the information of others. So they didn't see a big problem of this unity, because of course the school of Shafi'i, they do care about unity, but they just didn't see it that way. And they said, let's be practical and let's just sight the moon in your locality, and that's all you need to do. Now that we are in an era where communication is in flash, where the whole world come to your, to your palms, to your desktop, to your laptop, to your phone, and you are in full communication with the whole globe, it makes a huge difference now to say that two cities right next to each other and they're not really fasting on the same day. But you do notice that the Shafi'i school, despite the fact that they differed, they did put a clause though. So they did say with large distance. So you can see that even with the Shafi'i school, even with the different opinions, they don't see like two cities adjacent to each other. One is fasting and the other is not. And in the same state of North Carolina, that you have many communities, half of it is fasting and the other half is not. Half of it is celebrating Eid and the other. That does not and should not happen. This is the whole thing about Islam, is to be united. But unfortunately, it has a lot of issues, and maybe it got politicized throughout the years, where it's really meant for us to always be different and to not agree on something and not to be united. And those who have an agenda for that are really pumping this through other means of you being so rigid about your sunnah and your deen, and you're holding on to the dalil and the proof, thinking that you're the only one that has a dalil, as if the other respected scholars don't have dalil and proofs. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us. Allahumma ameen. Difference in moon sighting. What is the evidence for one who takes the opinion of fasting according to the horizon in one's region? So now I want you as student of knowledge to understand why they differed. Why majority say something and the Shafi'i school differed. So why? Based, of course, this is a one-time thing that I want you to learn these hadith and what have you, because as a student of knowledge, you have to have proofs. You don't say things without a proof. Now, you don't have to memorize the proof, but at least now you have the slide, you have your references. If somebody actually and tells you, what's your proof? You have a reference. As a student of knowledge, you can always go back to your notes and to your slides and find the dalil and send it their way, because this is your mission of attending these classes with me. You want to be advocates for the Sunnah of our beloved Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu. You want to be a knowledgeable person, and you want to also have references, and you also need to have proofs of what you say. So this is the story of Quraib, narrated that al-Fadl sent him, radiallahu anha wa ardaha, sent him to Muawiyah in Ash-Sham. He said, I came to Ash-Sham. Ash-Sham is the greater Syria. Like nowadays, it's Palestine, it's Syria, it's Lebanon, it's Jordan. You know, all that's called the greater Syria. And completed her. So she asked him to go to the Sham area and to complete some things that she was in need of. And he actually physically did. So he went to Ash-Sham. He completed everything that she wanted him to do. And he's done. Then the new crescent of Ramadan was sighted while I was in Ash-Sham. So he was still physically there after he finished her errands and all the stuff that she asked him to do. I saw the new crescent on the night of Friday. So Friday night, he saw the new crescent. Then, and the people of Ash-Sham, of course, followed the crescent because they saw it. Then I came to Al-Madinah at the end of the month. So of course, that's a long travel. Remember, the communication is not as fast. By the time he arrived to Al-Madinah, it was the end of the month. Remember, he saw the crescent at the beginning of the month. So it's almost taking him the whole month of Ramadan to travel back to Al-Madinah. So he came back at the end of the month. Abdullah ibn Abbas asked me about the sighting of the moon, and Abdullah ibn Abbas said, when did you see it? I said, we saw it on the night of Friday. He said, you saw it on the night of Friday? Yani, did you see it yourself? He said, yes. I said, yes. And the people saw it. And we started fasting because we saw the moon. And that's a command from Prophet ﷺ, صوموا لرؤيته, start fasting when you see the crescent. And so did Muawiyah. So did the governor of Ash-Sham, Muawiyah. He did, and he started the month of Ramadan. He said, but we saw it. Now, Ibn Abbas is saying, we saw it on the night of Saturday. We didn't see it on the night of Friday night. So we saw it Saturday. So we will continue fasting until we have completed 30 days or we see it. So because they fasted one day after, now, Quraib has fasted, if he's going to continue, he's going to fast way more than 30 days. So he's saying, that we saw it Friday night. They said, Ibn Abbas said, no, we saw it Saturday night. So we're going to continue. Unless we see the crescent, we're going to stop the fasting. I said, that is Quraib. Will you not be content with the sighting of Muawiyah and his companions? So Sayyidina Ibn Abbas said, no, this is what the Messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enjoined upon us. So here the scholars took it from that there is different of matla. The horizon issue is legitimate, because if it was not legitimate, then Sayyidina Ibn Abbas would say, khalas, if you saw it Friday night, then we're going to have to break our fast and just celebrate Eid with people of Sham. And if we only fasted 28 days because of this confusion, because we didn't say, we will make it up later on that one day. But if we fasted 29, that's good enough. But he didn't say that. He said, no, we're not going to make any changes. We'll just follow. And that's what Prophet ﷺ taught us. The scholars from this hadith understood that different horizons makes different sighting. And it's okay to have different opinions and to have different regions fasting and other regions are not fasting. From this hadith, you learn how the school of Shafi'iyah took that as a legitimacy to be different, of course, with proof. Ibn Abbas did not go by the sighting of the people of Asham, and the people of the region do not have to go by the sighting of the people of another region. So as I said, inshallah ta'ala, this was something to be for you to understand why we do that. So on this slide, inshallah, about the unifying So now about the one horizon, 1 day fast, 1 day break of fast, Eid, and what have you. What's the evidence? So we learned the evidence of those who say it's okay to be different. What is the evidence for those who take the opinion of unifying the commencement of fasting and just using one horizon as reference or as a reference? Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu arda reported that Allah's Messenger sallam, saying, the month of Ramadan may consist of 29 days. So it cannot be less than. So Prophet ﷺ gave the minimum amount of days of Ramadan. It can never be 28. If we had to do it 28 because of any other reason of different and confusion on citing, then we will we will have to make up one more day. So we have to fast at least 29 days. Prophet ﷺ said the month of Ramadan may consist of 29 days. That's the minimum. So do not fast till you have sighted it, the new moon. And do not break your fast till you have sighted it. Remember, صوموا لرؤيته وأفطروا لرؤيته. As student of knowledge, this hadith you need to memorize by heart. Because from this hadith, you are going to extract all the rulings that the scholars have talked about moon sighting. Okay, so this is a must. And it's definitely going to be on your quiz. So that's like a free question for you. Because it's a must for you to. This is really the leading hadith for the whole issue of moon sighting. Now, commencement of fasting is associated with the moon sighting. However, the sighting of a few people suffice. So now, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, "Sumu li ru'yatih." Do start your fast by sighting the moon and break your fast by sighting the moon. Very good. That's the standard. How did he do it? He sent few individuals to sight the moon. He did not send the ummah at large. So from his practice of his saying, Prophet ﷺ assigned a specific group of people to do that. And those two, those three, those five, those 10 who sighted the moon or the crescent came back and said, we saw it or we didn't see it. Upon that testimony, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and his whole ummah, which is Medina and the outskirts of Medina, they followed through. Now the scholars said that's the leading hadith. It does not apply only to Medina. That was the Islamic State at that time. But then the Sahaba followed through because of that. So it applies to everybody. Few individuals, they see the moon, they see the crescent, it applies to everybody else in the Ummah. It applies to everybody else in the Ummah. Now, someone might say, and inshallah, I'm going to end with that. And I want you to follow me very carefully on that. Someone will say, so why did Sayyidina Ibn Abbas said otherwise? He said that Prophet Muhammad taught them that it won't make a difference. This is where you go really, really deep into the usul of fiqh. Now, remember that was a saying of a companion. It was not a report of saying of our beloved Prophet Muhammad. So the scholars give a higher preference when it comes to legislation when it is a saying of Prophet Muhammad. It's a hadith. And then you have a saying of a companion. And to the best of your ability, as you gather all these sayings, there is quite a contradiction. The scholars would drop the saying of the Sahabi and take precedent over, or they take a top priority of saying of the Prophet Muhammad. Because they say the saying of the Sahabi could always be an ijtihad. It's his own judgment. It could be his own understanding. Remember what we talked about, that article of two people reading it differently? It could be his own understanding. That's what he understood. But it's not a clear-cut saying from Prophet Muhammad. Here in this slide, you have a clear-cut saying from Prophet Muhammad. And the way he applied it, he sent few people, saw the crescent, And the whole ummah fasted because of that. The whole ummah was small at that time. It was Medina and Mecca and what have you. But it doesn't matter whether it's only Mecca and Medina or whether it's many other regions. It's the same hukum and same ruling. Now, if there is actually a way to mend them together, that's what the scholars do. And some scholars said there is really no contradiction. The general rule is that citing applies to the whole ummah. What Sayyidina Ibn Abbas did is that if it was not able to communicate together and there was not ability to communicate, and one region fasted according to their ijtihad, khalas, leave them to continue the way it is. There is no reason to abrupt it because of a side that took place, 2,000 miles away from them. So they said, let's conclude it together. If there is communication, then we should be united and unified. If there is no communication and one region started differently than the other region, and the communication is very difficult, and they got to communicate and understand the communications way later. Remember, the hadith of Quraib was at the beginning of the month. It took him a whole month to reach to Al-Madinah. So there wasn't really a few hours difference and what have you. So to conclude, nowadays, the answer, we should be unified. Why? Because we have communication tools and because we are following the majority of the scholars who are following this hadith that you see on this slide, which is a saying of our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which takes higher precedent, higher authority, higher priority over a saying of a companion if we can't put them together. If we seem to have it as contradiction, then we don't. Now, why deeply the school of Shafi'iyya took other stand? We explained why, because maybe they didn't see the issue of bringing them together, because at that time they didn't see that this is a disunity or this is not unifying. Now, if the school of Shafi'iyya would come today and see this communication and see the way that we have it, would they still say, no, we don't care, it's okay, you just have to cite it? Each city would cite it differently. I would really doubt that this would happen. But again, whether it happens or not, we fully respect the opinions of the scholars. But at the end, we always know that, alhamdulillah, the scholars themselves said that they're at the end human beings and their judgment could be up to discussion and it could be always up to be evaluated, because at the end it's an extraction and it's a judgment of a human being. It's not a judgment coming from Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, who received revelation directly from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bring our hearts together and to make us among those who seek knowledge in order to benefit others and to reach out to others and explain to them why this difference of opinions that we have, and sometimes the beauty of it and the flexibility that sometimes it brings to put each region at an ease where they can apply the ahkam and the rulings according to their own practice, as long as it's within our boundaries, inshallah ta'ala. Jazakumullah khair. I'm sorry I took way longer than what I was supposed to, but this is a very complicated issue. So inshallah, we're going to stop today and here, and we will continue tomorrow bi'idhnillahi ta'ala with the rest of the sighting issue and the moon sighting and what have you. But I felt it's very essential for you to have strong foundations on that issue so we can build on it many rulings down the road, inshallah. Inshallah, I'll try to, so I won't take much of your time, to do quick on the questions, so to make up for the time that I took for the lecture today. So on the questions, it says, if you miss a day of fasting, which is better, to pay fidya or to make up the fast day after Ramadan? So this is something very important for me to explain to you. By consensus of all scholars, the option of missing out a day in Ramadan does not have any flexibility for the person to have two options. either I make it up or either I pay fidya. No, the absolute by consensus only way to make up a missed day in Ramadan is to make it up later on, by consensus. Anyone that breaks a day, a person that traveled during Ramadan, missed one day, has to make it up, cannot pay fidya. A woman that just got her period during the month of Ramadan and ended up breaking her fast for 5 days, she has to make it up later on. There's no fidya. A person that got sick and missed 2 days has to make it up later on. A person, and we can go on and on, all the things that breaks the fast. Somebody that really felt his stomach is really hurting and they vomited on purpose because they wanted to bring their like their stomach to an ease and what have you, they have to make it up later on. And they again and again and again, but because they felt sick, of course, not they did it intentionally, because they just felt like it. It's just they needed to break their fast and what have you. So it's all about making up. When do we talk about fidya? Fidya is only when someone cannot actually make up the day later on. And that has many rulings to it, many categories. Not many, but different categories to it. Examples of that: people who are sick chronically, so they have a chronic illness, they just can't fast because of their medications and because of their health issues. Just because they cannot fast Ramadan, and they cannot fast even after Ramadan, they just cannot fast. This is where fidya applies. A woman that is a pregnant woman and just had to break her fast, and then started being nursing, and then the following Ramadan came in, and she was either pregnant again or nursing still, breastfeeding her child and what have you. Then another Ramadan, now 60 days makeup. Then she got a new pregnancy. Then a third Ramadan came in. The scholars started making ijtihad that to fast 90 days is very difficult for her. So remember, the rule still for her to make up those 3 Ramadans, which is 90 days. So still the general rule applies. Then they say if she can't, because that's way too much and too difficult for her, then she needs to consider giving the fidya. But that needs an ijtihad from a scholar, from an imam that would give that sister that ruling. She cannot just make it up on her own and what have you. So there are many rulings to that, and we are going to learn those, inshallah, down the road. So inshallah ta'ala, for the Bismillah, let me see if I can pull up something from I think we're good so far with the questions, but I will just double check, inshallah. Okay, Bismillah. On the YouTube, I don't see any questions either. Sorry. Okay, so we're good, inshallah ta'ala. Jazakumullah khair for your patience today. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring us, inshallah, together to be knowledgeable in order to, inshallah ta'ala, worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on better terms, and also to be, inshallah, a messenger for his deen, to teach others the proper way of why we have sometimes these rulings, and how we respect all the opinions, and how, as a student of knowledge, you chose one opinion over the other. Now, if anyone comes and asks you, why do you go with the unified opinion that all regions should fast on the same day and break their fast on the same? Yeah, you used to say, well, I'm following my local masjid. You used to I follow my local imam. But now you got on a higher level where you say that this is my opinion. I'm following the opinion of the majority of scholars of Islam. that based their opinion over a hadith of Prophet ﷺ compared to a saying of a companion. So now you are way on a higher level when it comes to why are these things happening and why do you adopt such opinion and why are you practicing this way or the other way. Same thing goes also with your rulings when it comes to holding the Quran, remember, and being on like for the sisters being on their monthly period and what have you. Now they are applying ruling because of knowledge, not just because that's what I heard. So may Allah reward you for being committed to this cause, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings khair your way all the time. Allahumma ameen. Bless you, protect you and your family members. Allahumma ameen. Jazakum Allah khair. See you tomorrow. Barakallahu feekum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.